He's Blake. I'm Ronnie. All the good names are taken podcast, and we're back for another Friday the 13th episode in our long-running Friday the 13th episodes every Friday the 13th content till they bring us back a proper movie. And no, I'm not talking about that series. I'm talking about a movie, Blake. And today we're talking Friday the 13th, Part 8. It's been a while since we've talked Friday the 13th in our long-running review of this series, Blake. The notes are old.
Yeah.
I didn't rewatch it, but I know it still sucks.
Yeah, it hadn't been long enough. After watching this one and Goes to Hell, it hadn't been long enough. This movie was my favorite as a kid. I love the idea of Jason in New York, out of his element, interacting with lots of people at once instead of just one or two. But watching it back as an adult, trying to make sense of it, sandwich.
Without the bread. Here's the deal. When we last left our hero Jason, he was getting pulled underneath the water by Tina's dad, who had been under the water for 10 years.
Yeah.
At the end of part 7. He even crossed his eyes when the dad pulled the chains around his neck.
Well, yeah, you're getting choked underwater running. It's,
I was very surprised that this one picked up with him still at the bottom of the lake.
It never occurred to these creators just, hey, we really didn't like the last installment. Let's pick this one up after part 3, after part 4, or, after part 6. It didn't occur. Like, that's the thing. And I know we're going to get into that with the next movie as well, but I get it. Like, they were making these movies for $2, $3, $5 million a piece, and they were bringing in anywhere from $40 to $80 million. So yeah, let's shit these things out in a hurry and get rich. But they really didn't have that mentality either, because they were ashamed at the same time that they were making these Friday the 13th movies.
We're at the stage where they're finally not making as much money as they have in the past. 6 was low, 7 was the lowest, and 8 would be lower than that. Picking up from another sequel, that didn't become commonplace until
Halloween Ends.
Yeah, the late 90s. So, and I'm sure there's some examples of movies picking up other places, but I'm just saying, I think they didn't care. I remember when we reviewed this on the audio podcast, you laughed because you said that they did all this research about how they were going to know exactly what was going on. They all sat down and they watched the first 7 movies, and right off the bat, the 2 chicks on the boat are talking about how the kid drowned 3 years ago or some crap.
30 years ago. And it's like, dude, that was part 3.
And we're also into the 2000s by this point.
Yeah.
If you're following along with the Friday the 13th timeline, they're into the 2000s. So once again, nothing makes any sense. You got to wonder where the quality control was when they made this movie. And it's very disappointing that anybody thinks this movie's any good. And
yeah, I mean, just a real quick recap, Ronnie. Let's talk about this out loud. Part 2, 3, and 4 all take place in 1985, correct? Because part 2 is 5 years after the events of the original.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then we got the let's just skip to part 6. We know Tommy is 9, 10-ish in part 4. Now he's a full-grown ass man in part 6. So let's just say 12 years.
What was the timeline supposed to be from part 4 to part 5? I think they want us to think it's only supposed to have been
3 or 4
5 years.
Yeah.
And then from part 5 to part 6, I could be wrong. You guys can fact check me on this. There's a timeline out there that I'm not going to go diving into a locker like Lou Brown to try to find. I think between 5 and 6 is 1 or 2 years.
And then you got to wonder about the timeline between 6 and the beginning of 7 when Tina's a little girl.
That was supposed to be like a year.
Yeah, when Tina's a little girl and he's still trapped down there. And then fast forward, she's 17, 18.
That's another 10 years.
It's another 10 years.
So between 6 and 7, it's 11 more years. So we're into the 2000s, at least 2001. And they're saying 30 years ago, which would have put him drowning in the 70s. instead of 1957. So they did no homework. They did no quality control. They were just thinking that putting Jason on a poster and put with Manhattan behind him was going to get everybody back to the theater. And it didn't, Blake. Let's talk about this movie. It picks up, Blake. I will let you know, even as a 9-year-old kid, when this movie came on and the credits and the music started playing and you hear it's almost like a jazzy type music of rock / 80s jazz, and you hear the DJ in the middle of the night, you pull your in New York City
I didn't see that cut.
is going to ram.
Want to congratulate the graduating class of Crystal Lake High School. And even though you're fitting to come to New York, let me warn you, they'll put heroin in you and rape your ass in the alley.
The minute I heard that music and heard the DJ, I knew the movie was going to be terrible. And that is 100% truth. I knew the movie was going to be terrible. And on the flip side, 80 years later, sitting here as an adult, when Halloween Ends came on and I got to hear the music and the DJ, my mind immediately went to Friday 13th Part 8. And I was like, hey, this is before it even got started.
What do you think about movies opening up, showing like every scuzz that's going to be in the movie and every like little location, even like the corner, like they're showing the corner alley and then the diner and then the subway, like literally every scene that we're going to be at later, or every set piece we're going to be at later, and everybody we're going to run into later, we're showing them in the intro. What do you think about that?
My second note says the intro shows every place the characters will visit. I think it's lazy.
Filler.
Friday the 13th Part 8, lazy as shit. That's what the name of it should have been. They show you everywhere you're going, so there's no surprises when you get to New York. They even show the same punk sitting there in Times Square. It's bad, Blake. I'm searching. I don't want to be negative. We're trying to be as positive as we can about all these reviews. Why is the DJ in New York talking about the senior class from Crystal Lake? Is this a situation like we used to do back in the 80s where we call up the DJ at night because there was actually a human being in there and say, hey, can you give us a shout out? We're coming to New York. Is it one of those things?
Yeah.
I got a blow your mind question. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the debut of Slimy Jason. Jason is resurrected because there's a couple of kids on a boat at Crystal Lake, and they drop anchor, and there's a electric cable at the bottom of the lake, and it electrocutes Jason back into being alive or whatever. So that's the deal now. Electricity brings Jason back. For some reason, the guy has a mask that has the axe mark in it for some reason. That's never explained. Here's the question, Blake. Maybe we've talked about this before. I don't know. Why didn't Jason get off the boat at the camp and hit the woods? Why did he stay on the boat?
Great question, because my next note is, Ronnie, did you notice in the background, it looks like a lot of occupied cabins at the lake. Every one of them has power. Every one of them has lights on in the living room and the porch when the two idiots cut the power to everything. So why not like hit the cabins? Why does he just stay on the boat the whole time?
No idea. No idea.
It doesn't make much sense. Is that when those two characters in the beginning are talking, when he tells her "I love you"? Was that sincere? I love you.
No, he was just trying to get her panties.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
There's a weird scene, and I'm love that you're going to cut to it, where he does the fake stab, and they just do a zoom in on her face, like she can't believe she just got pranked. Got you good, Susie.
I had that back in when I dressed up as
Jason
for Halloween. I had the knife that would go in and out like that.
I remember finding it and playing with it. You had a Freddy hat and glove too.
Yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot of odd things in this beginning. When Jason comes onto the scene, they stop screwing and they just stare at him. He fires off. I don't even know what you would call that thing. He fired off harpoon well, and he misses. So I'm guessing that might be like a realistic take on Jason still trying to get his visibility back from being underwater, possibly, or he just his aim is. She runs off and leaves the guy to die. He doesn't even try to square up or nothing. Sleazy would be ashamed. Then she's hiding. No, she didn't jump off the boat or anything like that. She's hiding in a compartment.
Well,
And
Sleazy would say he would try to finish.
he takes this arrow type thing, this claw thing, and he just slowly goes into her chest.
Oh, Jarvis. I love you. Show everybody your
Edit.
Get out.
All right, let's get into it, Blake, or we'll be here all week. What is your first good?
My first good. I got to go way down to find the good. Let's start with Jason walking down Times Square. Probably the most iconic moment of the movie when he's walking around the city, just looking at everything, looking at all the lights, all the people. You always wonder as a kid when you're watching these, like if Jason was in an environment with a bunch of people around, would he just start swinging and killing? And I guess you get your answer. You know, he's only focused on who he's after. I mean, because obviously there's plenty of trash in New York he could kill, and he just bypasses all of them after Rennie and Sean. But yeah, Jason walking around New York with all the sights and big lights in the background is my first good.
My first good is Uncle Charles. He is one of the chaperones on this senior trip. I guess we didn't talk about it in the intro, but this whole movie takes place, majority of this movie takes place on a cruise ship. It's a senior class cruise ship. Jason climbs up the anchor and gets on board. And Uncle Charles is the main guy in charge, and he's the biggest asshole in the movie. But the reason he's one of my goods is, at least in a movie full of characters that are nothing, at least he's interesting when he's on screen. He's completely awful. He's an awful human being. You find out later in the movie that he threw the main character, or the final girl of Rennie, over the boat, and that's the reason she's got a terrible fear of water. But when he's on screen, he's either saying something hilarious or it's something worth talking about until Jason drowns him in the doo-doo water. But I mean, like I said, horrible character, horrible actor, but at least it's interesting when he's on screen. And not to mention, he saved everybody's life on board when Sean tries to drop the anchor in the middle of the storm.
My next good is this movie does have some cool deaths, don't you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I got it listed in the notes. Some really good kills.
The guitar smash, one of the early kills, the lava rocks, the Jeff Jarrett, yeah, the lava rocks, you know, to the gut was new. Punching Julian's head off is always fun, and yeah, most of the deaths in this movie are pretty good.
The heroin needle through the chest of one of the scumbags. He takes somebody's head. I think it might have been one of the scumbags, and he breaks a pipe with their head. I thought that was hilarious. He throws Wayne onto a way too sensitive control panel that sets him on fire. He strangles the Asian on the dance floor for over 10 minutes. I think he really killed her.
Well, I mean, let's hope so. Do you have any more good? Oh, I got one more good.
Yeah, I got one more.
The character of Julian, I really do feel like this is the only likable character in this whole piece of I know you mentioned the uncle, but you know, he is a heel and he doesn't take advantage of that high school girl like he should have. But you know, Julian tells him, "Man, school is out, man, and you know, let's go find this mother effer." And I mean, Julian really the only one being level headed in that situation, except for the whole split up as soon as we get to New York. That was pretty damn dumb. But that was also Uncle Charles's idea too. But I really like the character of Julian. I think he's brave. I think he might be one of the bravest guys in the franchise if you really think about it, Ronnie. I mean, remember Rob? He's a puss. Rick from Part 3, big dude. I mean, he's right underneath Tommy Jarvis as one of the bravest characters to just square up on Jason in this whole franchise, right? I mean, maybe him, Paul, and Tommy.
There's a bunch of them, Blake. One of my notes is this is one of the first movies where they form a posse to go after him. And like all these high school kids form a lynch mob to go find whoever's doing the killing on the boat. Now, obviously, they don't know it's Jason, but they all do try to attempt to square up. I guess you're right on the fact that Julian is probably the bravest because at that point, he knows it's an undead person. It's a monster. It's Jason Voorhees. and he still squares up with him on a roof. Now, punching him over and over after seeing none of this other stuff kill him probably wasn't the smartest move.
How about Jason being smart enough and aware enough to know that
he just threw him off the boat.
he threw him in the ocean? Good luck.
My next good is that they finally found a way to hurt Jason. At the end of this movie, Rennie.
This is good.
Yes, this is good. Rennie, I'm searching. Rennie takes random. Rennie takes just this random bucket of toxic waste,
which would be homeless in real life. It wouldn't be a bucket of toxic waste. It would be homeless people's piss and which might still do the same thing.
So for whatever reason, we're told that the city of New York floods the sewers with toxic waste every night at midnight. I don't know why somebody writing the script thought that was a good idea, but we had to get to the end, I guess. So Remy grabs this plastic bucket full of toxic waste and she dashes it into Jason's face during the last chase scene at the end. And at that point, you get to see Jason scream and be hurt for the first time in this series. Now you can say, well, Ronnie, he's died in every movie. Absolutely. In part 2, he took the machete through the shoulder blade and he went down. Okay. But he never acted like he was hurt. You just thought he's dead. Part 3, he takes the axe to the head, but he never screams and acts like he's hurt. Part 4, he gets chopped up into little bitty pieces, my friend. And part 6, they put him in the water. Part 7, they put him back in the water. He gets blowed up. He gets shot. He never shows any pain. And in this movie, a dead Jason, zombie Jason gets acid. Well, not acid, but gets toxic waste thrown into his face. And he is so effed up that he's screaming in the background while Rennie's trying to get away. He's like stumbling like Leahy from side to side. He is done at this point. He wants nothing to do with anybody else. I mean, it'd been better if he'd have just turned and ran away. That's my last good, Blake.
Well, that'll lead us right into my first bad, the toxic waste scene.
Which one? That one or at the very end when we have the worst ending of a Friday the 13th movie ever?
That's what I want to talk about. And so let me just combine the toxic waste scene with another one of my bad, which is Rennie's visions. We talked about the timeline at the beginning of this video and how it really doesn't add up, and why Rennie is having these visions of young Jason when she shouldn't. I mean, that shouldn't even be a thought in her head. I mean, young Jason was 60 years before this. I mean, adult Jason had already been here and gone at this point. And she keeps seeing different variations of young Jason. Her uncle throws her off the boat. She sees him underwater pulling at her leg. She sees Chinese young Jason in the window of the cruise ship. She hears the voices, "Help, mommy, help." Like, why is Rennie having these? I mean, make that make sense.
Okay. So let me try. And I agree with you 100% before I try. Charles tells her the story of the boy that drowned in the lake, Jason, before he throws her over the boat. And maybe, just maybe, just like with everything else with Rennie, she's full of shit and she just envisioned somebody pulling her down. And when she looked in the water, she panicked thinking, instead of I can't swim, she's thinking, oh, a boy in the lake. But it wouldn't make sense for her to see Jason the way Jason's supposed to look as a boy. That doesn't make sense. But maybe she was just, imagining all this. It's made up because she's a line headed.
She's a line dope-headed. Who proved it in that alley?
She's got AIDS, without a doubt. She's got AIDS. The minute the heroin needle hit her skin.
This is Stephen King's pen.
For those of you that don't know,
I'm gonna scare the hell out of you.
They get to New York, and they're in New York for 2 minutes before they're robbed, kidnapped, and injected with heroin needles. So she's definitely, and she's about to be raped. She's definitely got she's got AIDS, and this is not a happy ending. So anyway, back to your worst ending.
Yeah, I know we put a ban on mentioning them, but we got to ask how realistic that is of New York. Back to but the bad ending, you said?
No, it's an awful ending. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He gets toxic waste to the face. His mask explodes. He lets out a scream that sounds like Shelly from part 3. And then all of a sudden he's washed away by the toxic waste and he turns into a little boy. And it's not just Rennie's vision because they make a point to show Sean looking down at him confused too. I need help. Vinny, I need somebody to explain it to me. Make it make sense.
He can't. I mean, he's spinning around.
Oh, and while we're at it, this whole everybody arguing, especially you, Vinny, about Jason being he's territorial. He's territorial. Why the hell did he leave his territory then? Why did he get on a cruise ship and go to New York? Crystal Lake was there. There were people there, and he left. He don't give a shit about anything.
Maybe he was mad that there were people in New York.
There's people other places. Stupid.
My first bad, or is this my second bad? This is my first bad. It doesn't feel like a Friday the 13th movie. Nothing about it after the very beginning of the movie feels like a Friday the 13th movie. And the only reason the beginning of it feels like a Friday the 13th movie is because the boat is literally floating through Crystal Lake. And we're not going to spend any time on Crystal Lake connecting to the ocean so they can get to New York or anything like that. That's been done to death. But this doesn't feel like a Friday the 13th movie at all. They introduce the teleportation Jason, and they don't give any explanation to how that's happening. There's scenes in the movie where a kid climbs up a pole and then Jason catches him in 2 seconds after he's been climbing for 10 minutes. There's a scene when they're in New York where Charles runs away from Jason and into a building, and 2 seconds later, he's thrown out the window of the second or third floor. How did Jason get there? How does Jason know his way around the city? Makes zero sense. So it doesn't, at any point past the first 5 minutes of the movie, does it feel like a Friday the 13th movie at all. It just doesn't. And it could have, because you could have spent a majority of the movie going back and having the point of view shots. But at this point, we're just crazy Jason, who is killing everybody one by one, and we get to see him and all that. So there's no suspense. There's no stalking. It's just Jason clearing off a entire cruise ship. So it doesn't feel like a Friday the 13th movie is my first bad, Blake. There's way too much happening on this boat. At the very beginning of it, there's a dance floor, and they're shooting guns off the deck, which they would never allow high schoolers to do. They're throwing streamers. You got kids boxing and getting knocked out without supervision. They're doing coke. There's entirely too much stuff going on this cruise ship. It makes zero sense.
It's pre 9/11 and pre Columbine, Ronnie. So I think the whole guns and doing coke thing was allowed. My next bad is every actor not named Julian. Let's start with Sean. He actually replaced someone who was worse, which I just refuse to believe. I refuse to believe it. But this character is a dumbass crybaby. Dad don't love me. He's been training to be a boat captain his whole life. His dad is super proud of him, gave him every opportunity in the world to be successful. He's going to let him cruise this boat to New York while his friends are on board. How cool is that? And he's like, all right, son, what's the first step? And dumbass Sean is sitting there like, drop the anchor. No. Toot the effing horn. And Sean says to Rennie, I didn't think you were going to come. And she said, yeah, I changed my mind last minute. And he goes, okay, I brought you a gift. What the hell did he bring it for you if you didn't think she was going to be there?
And what was the whole point of this other teacher? This teacher that is encouraging Rennie to come on the boat and telling her to do the opposite of what her guardian is telling her to do. If she'd listened to Uncle Charles, she would never have been infected with AIDS. She would have been at home. Everything would have been okay.
Creepy English teacher giving her rides to the cruise, and
loser who can't have a family of her own, trying to raise other people's kids.
Yeah, I'm going to give you Stephen King's pen.
And then Rennie's the reason she dies. I mean, that's awful. I mean, Rennie don't know how to drive a car and runs over Jason and then runs into a building like an idiot.
What a weird shot too of they kill the sound, and they show Rennie in super slow-mo about to hit the Chinese kid from Goonies.
Data.
Yeah, she crashes into a car. I mean, into a building, and the teacher's inside the car. Oh wait, we forgot. We wrote somebody in the back seat. We got to write them off. Have the car explode.
Not to mention, she had already run over Jason. So why is she seeing Jason again? She ran over the real Jason, and then she sees her vision, which makes zero sense.
You got to wonder: is she having the visions, or is this drugs?
Well, I mean, she was on drugs since the beginning of the movie, then, because she was having those visions then.
Yeah. But my bad was Sean, the character of Sean, character of the English teacher or creative writing teacher, whatever you want to call her. They're all pieces of Rennie is horrible. I saw someone post the other day that Rennie was like one of the most underrated final girls in Friday 13th. Wrong. No, she may be dead last. Just absolutely terrible. Like, this movie shouldn't have been made.
No.
As much as I hate to say it, because I do love all Friday 13th. This movie,
great movie.
should not have been made.
Well, but I mean, Rennie should have died immediately. She gets shoved off the boat by one of the cokeheads. And you notice, like I know, there's like 50 occurrences every year of a newlywed couple where the husband and the bride take a cruise for their honeymoon, and then he realizes 2 days in he's made a horrible mistake, and the wife accidentally falls off the boat, and then they're lost forever. So Rennie would have drowned, and the boat would have kept going. Instead, the boat is still. Yeah. They were able to just jump off and get her.
That was my next point. Is I don't think people realize like how fast these boats are going. Like, when you fall off the edge of that boat, that thing is gone. I mean, for it to be able to stop and just actually not even turn around, but just stop. There's no way they got her that fast. And Sean's stupid ass dove off the deck too.
It'd have been a great scene if, like, all the kids grab Jason, they throw his ass off the boat, and he can't catch up with the boat because it's going so fast, and he's just stuck out there in the water.
He literally has to walk on the bottom, like in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, to get back to Crystal Lake. Shark gets him, like in Zombie. He has to kill a shark.
They could have done so much good stuff, like stupid ass sci-fi type stuff with that. Well, you know, Jason kills a shark.
Well, what was
An
great?
octopus gets Jason, like that movie from Mystery Science Theater.
Bride of the Monster.
Bride of the Monster. That's it. Let's review that next.
And we'll wait for October for that. Anyway, what were you going to? If octopus gets Jason, he has to slash the tentacles off. Like, the whole movie should have been underwater. Jason just having to kill all these different creatures. Those guys in that submarine were down there that exploded. He could have like jumped in that submarine and took it back to Crystal Lake.
Now we know what happened to that. What was it called? Titanic thing. Now we know what happened.
Maybe the best scene in the movie, Blake, is when they all board the life raft and they look up and Jason's at the top of the ship looking down at them in the rain and the lightning in behind.
Really big fear of mine to be out in the ocean with super bad weather, with the really bad waves. Really big fear of mine.
Like Mark Wahlberg and George Clooney in that movie.
Yep, Three Kings.
Mm-hmm. I guess we could bring up the fact that these are the weirdest characters because at the end of the movie, their entire families are dead. All their friends are dead, and they're just happy and walking around. Hey, it's New York. Yay.
You want to go Statue of Liberty? How many false, which I get it, maybe it's a throwback to the original with Alice and Mrs. Voorhees. You think she's dead like 4 times. You go from building to building. But how many times do these two think they're in the clear and then turn around and Jason's standing there?
A bunch of times. I thought it was hilarious that Jason getting run over by a cop car kept him down longer than Jason getting thrown on the subway and getting electrocuted. And he grabs that big cook in that diner and throws his ass around. He kicks the boombox. We got to mention that. And it shows all the punks his face and they run away. Comedy. And then there at the end, you meet, I think it's the guy from House of a Thousand Corpses, the one that's in everything that everybody loves. Hey, man, good thing y'all ran into me because they're flooding the sewer with toxic waste, man. Again.
Bill Moseley.
Yeah, Bill Moseley. All right, Blake, who's your ugly? You want me to go first?
I mean, they probably meant for this to be this way, but I'm going to go with the nerdy guy with glasses. I'm pretty sure his ass is wearing suspenders at one point. He's got oily ass hair. He's got the glasses. He's walking around with a camera. I mean, he's just a total effing nerd.
He's got
And
that rock chick wanting to gobble his and he's too big.
exactly. I mean, you could get from the rock star, but you're too worried about, Uncle Charles or whoever you're after. Oh, one thing I want to point out is the chick with the anatomy experiment that doesn't look good, but she's supposed to be the hot one in this movie. She is the mom of one of our favorite actors. It's the kid from Grown Ups 2, the one we like, Summertime. He's also
Oh, wow, really?
he's the bad guy in Hunger Games. So yeah, that's his mom.
Nice.
So nice little fun fact for you, Ron.
There you go. I'm going with Tugboat Ralph for my ugly.
Oh, we didn't even talk about Dollar General Ralph, did
And
we?
there's a Tugboat Ralph, and he's walking around on the ship. You're all doomed, and he's hearing like the sounds of the kids screaming, coming through the pipes as they die. Yeah, he's ugly, and at the end he stumbles out, and he's got a knife in his back or whatever, an axe in his back. If you want Ralph around so much, why'd you kill Ralph off? You really had an opportunity here to have 90-year-old Ralph show back up, and you get to say, hey, this is Ralph's job. This is what he's doing when he's not drinking himself silly and riding that bicycle around.
Such a great point. I mean, they had a rip-off Ralph in part 3 holding up the eyeball.
Yeah.
They had a rip-off. No, the guy in the cemetery in part 6 wasn't a rip-off of Ralph.
Nope.
There was rumor that was Jason's dad, Elias Voorhees.
What do you think about that? Everybody wanting Jason's dad to show up. We need to do a whole thing. We need to do a whole deep dive into our opinions on that. We won't even waste it with it right here.
I think if they were ever to do a remake of Friday the 13th and they stick to the original formula, I would like it to be revealed that Jason's dad is the killer instead of his mom. I think that would be a cool little twist, and he sees his dad get beheaded, to start this one off. But as far as anything else, I could give a shit less. I mean, the reason he left is because his son is uber retarded.
There you go. About Uber Jason.
I wouldn't be back. See ya.
Well,
what if Jason went to New York to find his dad?
That might be it. Here's another thing. Why is that maintenance guy that Wayne kills with the shotgun because he can't see with his camcorder? What is he still fixing down there? Like they talk about this hunky maintenance guy, and then Wayne accidentally shoots him. This is after they've made the all call for everybody to please report to the bridge. It's an emergency. He's still down there just fixing stuff.
Was it a maintenance guy, Ronnie? I always assumed it was part of their crew. I thought it was one of his buddies that was in this gang. Hey, let's go find Jason and kill him. I thought this was a teenager that Wayne killed.
No, it was the hunky maintenance guy that the cokeheads were flirting with.
Oh, okay.
All right, well, that'll do it, Blake. That's Friday the 13th, part 8. And this is... I
will say this. There is one character that you have sympathy for in this movie.
The dog?
No, not Christie or whatever his name is. The dog's wearing a bandana in honor of Steve Christie, too.
Is that real?
Yeah, it's real. The captain, right before he dies, is talking to his first mate, his gay mate, whatever you want to call him.
Had it.
And he's like, you got us. How old's your boy now? He's like, 4 months old. He's like, fine age. Don't F it up like I did. And then they kill him. So, like, can I get a story of that son, trying to avenge his father?
Yeah, really. That would be like everybody making these fan films. Let's make a fan film of the son of the tugboat second in command who's coming after Jason for killing his daddy. That's a good movie. I'd watch that. All right, Blake. Everybody
30 years ago, my dad set sail for New York and never came back. I'm going to find out why.
Well, first plot hole, he's dead. They found him.
I'm going to go storm the Capitol.
Hit us in the comments. What is your good, bad, and ugly from Friday the 13th, part 8? Rate it if you want to. We're not going to do that. We don't want to be too negative. Friday the 13th, part 8 had a lot of problems. But then again, I'm a person that doesn't like change. I think every Friday the 13th should take place in the campgrounds because that's a Friday the 13th movie. And I think there are clever ways you can do a Friday the 13th movie where you're always in the grounds around Crystal Lake, that it doesn't have to be repetitive.
Go ahead and tell us in the comments that this is a guilty pleasure and we're being too hard on it. I mean, I like this movie too. I watch it, every single year too. But this
and
movie
then unsubscribe.
This movie does suck.
Yes. And then they're playing the music again at the end of it. The
I've
DJ.
always you call it jazzy music. I've always called it great outdoors music because it reminds me of the music that's playing in great outdoors when they're shooting pool. You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about? When
I
he
do
puts that
know.
stick in her ass.
Yep. All right, Blake. We'll be back with Friday 13th, Part 9. Maybe before they start this I'm saying Elm Street. Maybe before they start this Crystal Lake series, we'll be back with it.
Maybe.
See you guys.
Yeah.